you know anyone in school, high school, college, career track, where they're getting a certification and they're in a class? If you do, then you may be interested in this.
I'm an assistant professor of chemistry and biochemistry, and I teach primarily undergraduate chemistry courses like first semester general chemistry, and I also teach upper level biochemistry courses.
I'm a registered nurse in cardiac ICU. I had Drew in class. I had anatomy and physiology as well as pharmacology with him.
I am an instructor of anatomy and physiology to undergrads at a small liberal arts college. I also am the director of pre-health programs, which means I do a lot of our pre-health advising for students that are going to go on to professional school, medical school, PT, PA, etc.
When I was starting to go back to school to become a paramedic, I was taking some of my prerequisite classes, anatomy and pharmacology, and Drew was my instructor for those classes.
Do you know anybody that could benefit from being more efficient and effective at learning new material or skills?
Gets them prepared for their first freshman year in college and gets them motivated and excited to study and take on their difficult science courses.
Any materials that I got from you, I would always go back and reference it from all my other classes, and I always felt like, okay, now remember what Drew said about going through and doing your test, about studying. Like, I feel like I used all those skills that he had taught me with my other classes through nursing as well.
The biggest help is actually right now at the place I'm currently employed. I'm an FTO, I'm a field training officer. My job is to take new EMTs and new paramedics, and I have to teach them all sorts of things, how we do things, various equipment that you don't learn in school, and I have pulled some of these ideas out.
The biggest feedback that I got from those students was, I wish I had gotten this advice when I was a freshman.
So yeah, I've used some of this as much as recently as a week ago.
The question is would somebody you know like to get better grades in less time and have more free time?
I think what's so great about this method and about the ideas that Drew is laying out is that it's applicable across different learning levels.
And it really did turn out to be, I could get more done in less time.
Do I have your attention? The key to college success, really the key to any success, is simple. It's not complex. You take a step back and you break it down.
The book is laid out very, very clearly, very systematically. It's not kind of nebulous ideas. It's no, these are the steps that you need to take. Students appreciate that because they really didn't know how to tackle these kind of big concepts.
I feel like he really gets you on the right path to go further in depth with that and really learn and know what you're looking for.
Hi, my name is Drew Case. I'm a professor at a university where I teach currently leadership. I have been teaching post-secondary education for 20 plus years, and I've taught mostly science classes. I've taught human anatomy, physiology, pathophysiology, pharmacology. I taught in nursing for a long time, teaching med-surg.
He's a dynamic speaker. The students all really enjoyed interacting with him in the classroom.
Over all these years, I think Drew is a great asset to our university, and I hope to continue having Drew come to speak with my students because I think it's a great pep talk.
You know, the classes that challenged me, I did the best with, and especially with you as my instructor, I mean, you made it known what had to be known to succeed in the class.
What I have done is I've taken education and broken it down into simple, easy to follow steps. It's not theories, it's not hypothetical, it is tangible things that you can do that will shorten your time studying, lead to better grades, and give you more free time. Time to do whatever it is that you're looking to do.
I'd spend 3 hours just cramming, or spent the same amount of time, but in this other way, half of that time is fun, and I've still got the same amount of information. Everybody who I worked with in that class said the exact same thing.
He would just remind us to, study in certain time periods, don't kind of overdo it and sit there for a super long time, take breaks, stuff like that.
I was so impressed with the book and so impressed with that interaction that I then required that book as a text for a freshman seminar class that I teach so that our students could get that advice at a time that would make it more useful for them.
What I discovered through all these years of teaching is that learning is not necessarily a natural process. And in fact, in our educational career, nobody really teaches us how to learn. It's just sort of trial and error. Well, the worst part is once you get to college, that is the absolute worst time to be trying and erring on your education.
I never really had to learn how to study before. All through high school and up through my EMT courses and everything always just kind of came easily to me.
One thing that I noticed with my students, I tend to teach juniors and seniors, or upper level students, and they're exceptionally bright. They can explain concepts. They're, smart people, and they lacked basic test taking and basic study skills.
Getting into college, things started to get more complicated, things started to get deeper, a little bit tougher, and I realized that my study habits were not cutting it.
And then you'd be like, oh my gosh, I just took that test and nothing that, I studied was even on that test from the study guide. Like, what's going on?
I had these conversations with Drew because he was also an educator who understood the skills that were necessary to succeed in a professional program. And he's also an educator, and so he had dealt with some of the same problems with his students.
I'm passionate about this, and I've enjoyed doing this. I've taken everything that I have accumulated in the last 20 plus years, and I have put it together in a book and an online course for those of you that are visual. It is guaranteed to work. In fact, the Udemy course, when you take the Udemy course, they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So you really don't have anything to lose.
This was very helpful in my physiology class.
I spent 5 years active duty in the Air Force. I was a missile combat crew member.
And I am so glad, because that was probably the class that had helped me the most, because that's the class that I had the biggest trouble in.
As it should be if you're dealing with ICBMs. It's a very structured environment. Structured as far as the learning objectives, and there's not much room for error. 90% or below is failing. There's just no room for error with nukes.
I still passed with an A, but it took more work in that class than in any other class, and I think it would have been a little more out of my reach to achieve a grade like that if I didn't have that information and that knowledge on how to prepare properly and how to actually study in a way that was useful and use my time appropriately.
Working in ICU, I feel like you always have 1,000 different things coming your way, and I would just always remember how Drew would say about taking it easy through, the study, the test, everything like that. So I kind of just treat life like that as well.
I absolutely could see that this would be useful, especially with those operators that we had to, as trainers, give a lot of extra time to. Because again, they didn't have those skills. There wasn't much support given at that level for this is how you do it. So I think that this would have been a very useful approach, especially in that monthly required kind of high stakes training.
What I present to you in the book and the course work. Not hypothetical, not theories, time tested, they work.
I came to him looking for the notes to help with my classmates, and then we got to talking about it a bit, and I suggested that he make a book and put it out there, something that had all of these study notes and all these guides and tips and information in just one book that people could pick up, could read, because it's not just helpful to the anatomy class, it's not just helpful to the pharmacology or the physiology class, it's geared towards everybody. This would be helpful in my math classes. This was helpful in my German class.
I have had students, and I'm thinking of one specifically, he's in PT school. He, again, he's that classic really bright kid who just isn't very disciplined with his studying. Now he's in PT school and has to be, and he's told me that he's gone back to the book.
Definitely use anything that Drew had to succeed in my career.
The reviews, I presented this to thousands of students over the years. The feedback is outstanding. It's great. It's not, I think this works, or I think this is going to be helpful. I know this works. I know this is helpful.
The feedback that I've gotten since from that batch of students was that they have used some of those techniques as they've moved on into professional school.
The student evaluations are always fantastic. So the students always give the highest rating to Drew's talks.
I learned so much in his classes, and I liked his notes and everything so much that I always look to see in my future classes, okay, is Drew Case teaching this class? Because if he is, I'm taking it with him, 100%. So he's been my favorite instructor my whole nursing career, and still to this day is, so I would take any class with him.
So what do I cover in the book and the course? What don't I cover?
Biggest help I got out of all of that would be cutting down the flashcards so that they're actually flashcards and not full note cards.
Drew lays out, okay, not just make flashcards, right? We can all say make flashcards, but this is what you have to do to make those a useful learning tool, and lays it all out for them. And that's been the thing that students, of course, have said, well, you told us this, but we didn't realize how useful it was going to be.
Certain things that we would write, certain sayings that you would say, I feel like really made it stick in your brain, so that you were able to repeat that information on the tests.
And I think the difference is that he takes the time to actually tell them, no, this is how you do it. So it's very, very easy.
It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Sit there with the flashcards. You didn't feel like you were pushing and studying hard and driving yourself nuts trying to learn all this stuff. You're just doing something fun and taking a little break to study for a couple minutes.
Jump online, take a look at it, look at the table of contents. I cover everything from the first day or even before starting college to the end. And again, this isn't about necessarily only college. It's high school, it's military, it's anything that you need to learn new material or skills.
And I thought, if this is going to help me, this is going to help, my wife who was in school at the time, or a couple of my friends who were in school, or anyone in my medic class. This would have been great for anybody.
I could see my sons in high school using these techniques. I could see my undergrads using these techniques. I know some of my students who have gone on to professional school and are thrown into that just drinking from a fire hose environment are currently using these techniques.
I would pass on to anybody and everybody that I came into contact with that was looking for good information on study skills.
One of the things that I teach all my students, and this is critical, is the quality of our answers depends on the quality of our questions. And this is the most important question of all. What are you willing to do to make it happen? You have to answer that. That, bottom line, is the most important quality question that I can ask you.